Hey there, everybody. I am joined by Jared. Jared, say hello.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
And we're going to talk today about the Star Wars Players Committee and sort of what they've been up to, what COVID was like, what's in store for the future, some of the programs that they're running right now. So I think we got a pretty exciting kind of show plan. But Jared, I think maybe you want to just do a quick primer on the PC and like the 15-second elevator pitch or 20-second elevator pitch?
Yeah, sure. So first, thanks for having me back on. I know I came on several months ago to talk about virtual cards, and that
Yep.
that was a good episode. Really enjoyed doing that. Also want to congratulate you. You won 2022 Content Creator of the Year award.
Appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys putting stuff like that on. So
yeah, no, just
really
great
cool
stuff
stuff.
all year from you from several different angles. So, from us and the Players Committee, we always like seeing people make content, but yours was really exceptional because it was really welcoming to new collectors, returning collectors, new players, old school format players, and yet you had some other stuff like having me on to talk about virtual cards. So all different types of stuff. So awesome year in content from you.
Can't believe it's been a year.
But yeah,
Like I
yeah. Yeah, so us as the Players Committee, we just finished our 20th year of being stewards of this beloved customizable card game with Star Wars. It was actually in April that we 20 years exactly of the chartering. So we steward the game in different ways. We make new cards, we help events, we help any different type where we can. People coming into the game, especially new and returning players, how to learn it, and just all the different aspects of just trying to keep the game fresh and new, but at the same time trying to have a good home for different collecting angles, for retro formats. And that's one of the big things that I'm sure we'll touch upon a little bit more.
Yep.
But the fact that GEMP being an online platform is just really great for old school players to play different formats from back in the day.
Absolutely. So I guess this is one of the things I've been thinking about a lot. You guys have been stewarding this game since Decipher lost a license in 2020. I'm sorry, 2001. So 20 years. But I have to imagine there's been all sorts of ups and downs. But COVID probably was the biggest shift as far as people coming back to the game, people rediscovering collecting. And I would just kind of love to hear about how the last 2.5 years have been, because I feel like a lot of this stuff has exploded, but some of it's also imploded, right? It's like you had a bubble, then it burst. And I don't think that's happened for this game, but I'd be curious to hear kind of your take on it.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I would say the first 12 years of the Players Committee was just a little more stable. There was a lot of growth. There was new cards being produced. There were advancements in graphics, proofing. I
Mhm.
combined graphics and proofing. But I think there's three major events really in the last 8 years, I would say, that have just been huge for the game. The reset in 2014 in conjunction with Disney Star Wars and kind of having a little bit of a canon realignment. I shouldn't say a little bit; it was pretty significant.
Yeah. I
But
mean, they threw most of it out, right?
yeah, but that was huge in that it allowed the game to reset the card pool to take it from, I don't know the exact number, but basically 12 years worth of virtual cards being produced to kind of call that back to 100 to have a
Mhm.
base set. So that was big, and that the barrier to entry was greatly reduced to the open format. The next big boon was GEMP, which actually started around 2013, was when Troy first started developing it. It just kept crawling, and he just kept gradually doing more things, but it really just picked up steam like a snowball. And once early 2017, right after Rogue One came out, it just pivoted. Like there was just a lot more cards available. It seemed like Troy really hit a stride and how to code things. You weren't going on to GEMP and being limited by the card pool significantly. Like there's definitely some cards that weren't coded yet. But and then within a year or two, the Players Committee helping out and inheriting it, play testing is being done on there, and now new cards are being released simultaneously from the PDF that you cut out for card slips with
Right.
the cards being operational on GEMP. So that was huge. And then the third big thing was COVID in a really kind of weird way that people going to their attics, inventorying their cards, having some more time, or being housebound a lot more. So they were able to play the game, and we, just with GEMP being more usable, having these older formats, sealed formats, alternate formats. In 2018, the online championship series started, and that offered a competitive online and more than ever before, more than like the online events of like the Hollow Table era, which was the other software platform, not quite as welcoming or as easy, and definitely not rules enforced the way GEMP is. So we had a lot of people come back to the game in a lot of different ways. and I think a lot of them have definitely stuck.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten really good in the last year or so of just, hey, we can run these events. We can utilize all the positive aspects of GEMP. We can do sealed formats. We can have people sign up for something and have like a pretty structured Swiss event like the Retro League, like you participated in last year. And I think that really tapped into a lot of players that they're rediscovering the game. They don't know all the open cards. They don't really want to know all the open cards sometimes, but there's like this comfort of playing in Premier to Death Star 2 and kind of going back to the 2000 era. And that's just been a huge boon. And I think Andy Talaga, our good friend, I know he had some constructive criticism about, the PC, this was like a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, maybe. PC isn't quite as involved in retro formats. And I think what that was that we're a small community. Doing events is a huge deal. And I think when people travel for events, they don't, not all of them want to bring different format decks, extra decks, re-sleeve them all up. But I think what GEMP does is it allows people to play those formats, tweak their decks, have them ready to go. Then building them is a lot quicker. You build them, you bring them, and that's why we've attached in-person retro events to the 2021 Worlds, which you were at as well. I played in that event, and we're going to be doing that again for 2023. It's something that I think if we did it every single major, it might be tough. And there's only so many of the retro formats that have that good balance of like open players like it, but then it's also we're in a good area where there's a lot of old school players that'll show up. So that's where I think GEMP again has just been awesome. And in light of more people kind of coming back and exploring it in the COVID world, getting more familiar. And one more point on that too is, in 2020, we didn't really have any in-person events. In 2021, we had a couple of majors that were in person. But what we would do for a long time were these local leagues. And these were like 5 events during the course of the year. People would do them at their local gaming store, get together, 8, 10, 12 people at a time. And there were special prize kits for them offered by the PC. 2020 came around, we couldn't really do that. A couple of the leagues still did it online. And I think in 2021 and 2022, with the help of like Sam Tashima, who's in the organization, and Bill Kafer, and myself, and Tournament Advocate, of course, too, Chris Schoenthal, the leagues are kicking back up again. And that would be if you ask me, like, what are some of the predictions or things, anticipations in the next year? I think we're going to see even more of the league events switch back to in-person, which, there's, the in-person experience, the camaraderie, playing the game,
especially a locally driven one, right? It's like, truly being like this thing that I collect that sits on my shelf, but like, oh, there's people within a 2-hour radius that also do this. That locality, I feel like, is so key to building a sense of community. And I think that's really good, like that sort of grassroots level.
Yeah, so I think that'll kick back up. I think there will be more, the league events will shift a little bit more away from, being almost exclusively on GEMP to like a good, healthy mix of the two. So that's definitely one of the things I'm excited to see develop.
Cool. So you guys are a 501c3. I just made a donation this year, but I think a lot of people may not know about the donation program. And, I'll include a link in the bio, just to get the word out a little bit more if people haven't heard about it. But can you just kind of give a brief overview of like the sort of the finance side? Like, why are you asking for donations? What do they go to? How expensive is it to run a server? I imagine actually quite expensive, right? Everyone's a volunteer. No one's making money here. So just be curious to kind of like learn a little bit more about the donation program.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about it. So it originated back in 2015, like a Kickstarter. The Players Committee was incorporated as a 501c3 charitable organization, and that enabled us to have this trade-off of please support us. We'll give you some incentives the way that lots and lots of nonprofits and charitable orgs do. So when it first started, there was pretty good reception. I think just in like 2016, 2017, 2018. With just being a volunteer organization, people are kind of pulled in different directions. So there was a little bit less of a focus at that point. And then in 2020, I started getting involved in helping Scott Lingrell, the lead advocate, to help get all of the cool incentives out the door and help, because it's a huge process to manage. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, even then, like 2020, I think we had like maybe 45 donors. And we were a little behind on that because there's just, we try to have like a cool, at that point, we definitely tried to have like, 6, 7, 8 different types of things, but ordering them, getting them all together, packaging them, shipping them out was a big process. So I was a little behind. So I helped to get things kind of caught up. And this was, I guess, early 2020. And then helped basically roll forward into the 2021 program, 2022 program. And I think It's just grown exponentially, frankly, and it's for a couple different reasons. I think part of the COVID aspect, honestly, people coming back to the game, getting more aware of it. Oh wow, the PC's around, they're keeping this game going. This Gem thing is just awesome. I want to support this. So I think that was one angle. I think another angle was just our social media got a lot better, being on different platforms like Slack, Discord, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So more awareness that way. But I'd be kidding if I said the deck boxes weren't just a huge driver of people. I hear it all the time as a marketing advocate that
They're
these deck
cool.
boxes, yeah, and I have one right here. This is a series 2. This is one of the Boba Fett ones.
Let me just emphasize you here so we can get a cool picture of just you showing it off. Wait, how do I do this?
Yeah.
I forgot how to do it.
So these are flying like hotcakes.
So is that there's 6 of them available? This is that's the most popular one. I actually ordered the General Grievous because I think I'm the only person that likes General Grievous in the world.
Yeah. No, so the Bobas are far and away the most in demand of the series 2. The other 5 are pretty close, honestly. With Grievous, BB-8, Captain Hera, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Lord Sidious. I think I got them all. But basically, this just originated out of in the community, just kind of talking. People talk about how much they like the old OTSD boxes, and we just had a concept, and our great graphics lead developed, the actual files to get this done. So last year we had 6. We wanted to make them as an advocate council as broadly available as possible. So that's where we had Kylo and Ahsoka and Blizzard 8 and the other 3. Oh, Admiral Radis, and who am I missing?
I know there's a red one. Is there
Vader.
Kylo already?
There's the Betrayer Vader, so episode 3 Vader, and there might be one more.
I think there was 6.
Yes, and they're just really great because especially for like open players who have like their decks are double sleeved, they have their shields in there. Those OTSD boxes are a little smaller, so open players really like these. You just carry everything in one around in one box. But I mean, all retro players, they just look really cool. They're very nostalgic. They kind of harken back to, how the old ones looked. So they've been very attractive, and that's one of the biggest changes from the 2021, or I guess it would be the 2022 program to the 2023 program. Was in 2022, no matter how much you donated, you got one box. And just hearing people say, a lot of people said, you know what, and we offer them in a couple different ways of playing at events, going to majors. Sometimes you get a little lucky. We give them out to exceptional volunteers, and there's just some of the feedback was, not everyone's able to go to 3-4 in-person events a year, but everyone can donate. We do it through leagues, so that's where as well in 2022. This year we said, hey, if you really want the boxes, you could support us a lot, and you can get up to all 6. You can get 6, you can get 4, you can get 2, you can get 1. If you're someone who doesn't care for them at all, if you just want 1, okay, that's fine too.
Yeah.
So that's where we've had just an exceptional reception. Last year, we blew through our record donations. We had 125 people donate. This year, I think we're already around 95, just a month into the 4-month window. We've already surpassed the total amount. And what this does, obviously historically, the PC has generated a lot of its revenues through the store, the PC store, and through other stuff like registrations for events and donations more recently. I just think just over time, things change. It's definitely a little bit more of a competitive landscape with the collectibles market right now. So we're still doing pretty good as the PC store, but the donations program has really enabled us to do lots of cooler things with prizes, with different getting our streaming and coverage a little more professional, and all types of prizes, really, like concrete prizes. Sometimes for events that are really competitive, there's cash prizes, so we can kind of work the different angles to keep the most amount of people happy. We don't mind like sending stuff to people like, hey, we'll ship this to you for free. Like last year we did the Retro League totally for free. Send you all these prizes, pay for all the shipping, support things in that way. And our mission is to keep the game going. The PC doesn't look at each event and say we got to make money off this, or we need to be in a net positive position. Fully willing and understanding that there's going to be lots of things that we do that we lose money, but that is perfectly okay if it is in the spirit of the game and spirit of the mission, expanding the breadth of the game. And that's where the donations program, we can do lots of really, really cool prizes is where I see it the most, but there's lots of expenses keeping Jump maintained. The costs that go up to make different software that's needed for like graphics and items like that. But just it's a good position to have because we just, especially we don't have, a regular constant stream of inflows. So with
Right,
the
right.
donation program, we kind of get a good spot, and we can kind of think over time, how best can we deploy this?
So I just want to give a quick plug. So I like a lot of games, right? Lord of the Rings, a couple of these other obscure ones, right? To sit in my closet, and I just have to say that where Star Wars CCG is just like magnitudes more sophisticated in that there's actual virtual card, there's an online format supported, there's tournaments, like a lot of this other stuff. I'm just like, this is just in some guy's basement, right? And like you have to, and it's like the
Yeah.
only way to really find community is via like a dead CCG Facebook group. And I just want to, applaud the work you guys have done to really just be like the premier out of print, games. I know that's maybe a weird thing to say, but I think you guys are just like by far the most sophisticated that I've encountered. But like even versus system, right? Which a lot of people love that game. It's like they don't have the same level of resources or virtual cards coming out. So I just think I really have to kind of give you guys a pat in the back for keeping the game interesting 20 years later, which it's not always a super elegant product. That's actually something I played in the retro tournament this past year, and I was just reminded, I'm like, man, Sense and Ultra is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
like a lot of the early formats. I'm like, this is not super fun, right? And it just doesn't age the same way, right? There's certain things built in the game that make it less elegant and more clunky than other modern experiences. But I think you guys are really doing a good job trying to modernize it. So it's definitely interesting to watch that happen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, a few things I definitely want to touch on in that space. So yeah, we actually do. I hear that a lot. I see that a lot. That we've defied the odds of being around and being active and being like professional, like in the virtual sets, the GEMP, and
I think right there,
yes,
that word professional is something that is so key, because so many of these communities, it's like there's not any professional entity. And I think a lot of people, there's just buying stuff on the internet is scary, right? Especially buying out of print card games from some guy's like, former storage unit, that like, it's sketchy, right? So it's nice to have an organization that adds like a level of professionalism there that makes it feel a little safer, a little more institutionalized.
Oh, for sure. And that's like the byproduct of, many years. Like I've only been actively playing since 2017. I've been only an advocate since early 2021, but for years and years, lots of volunteers and lots of different areas kept the game afloat. And I think what we're definitely seeing in the last few years is just in terms of card game design, there's now been, so many years applications from a design perspective, but we also have and we just recognized 8 volunteer award winners, including one main volunteer of the year award, who's our graphics lead, Christian. Just done an incredible job of bringing consistency to the cards, doing different graphics for marketing purposes, and obviously for the actual virtual card purposes. We recognize different folks in terms of tournaments, running events, coming up with new ideas for events, coming up with different prizes, coming up with different content creation, just folks that spend so much of their time to make the product really good in lots of different ways. And a lot of the times it's pretty thankless, but we always, let me put it this way. It's a lot of time that I think a lot of the community doesn't fully recognize on a day-to-day basis, which is totally understandable when you're just kind of playing the game. But it's like just the incredible contributions from the volunteers who spend, and that's why sometimes some things like, people have work and they have family, and like this volunteer stuff, people like doing it, they want to do it, but in terms of prioritization, like sometimes it goes to the bottom. But at the same time, we've had a lot of exceptional volunteers who always want to, advance and keep getting better and getting stronger in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I feel, I mean, hats off to all the volunteers, and even doing this little channel stuff, I feel, one, every time I open up a pack, I'm like, all right, there goes $30. It's like, why did I just, okay, I pulled the $2 rare, right? And I'm like, but you do it because it's fun. You do it because it's something you enjoy, that you get value out of, that you get fulfillment out of. And that's why I've kind of done this whole thing, for the last year. I don't know, I was talking with Andy about this. I'm like, do I have a year's more worth of content of like Star Wars stuff? I don't know. It's like eventually you run out of stuff after, game was in print for 6 years. But with the PC coming out with new sets and sort of there is a tempo, right? It does make things more interesting. But you do just run out of things to talk about eventually. And it helps to have people that help, keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and that's where the new sets come in, and that's where one of our volunteers, award winners, individual named Kevin Yap from Wales, actually, he's really tapped into something that we all love. We all love opening up packs, but our game has been out of print for 20 some years, so he has thread the needle in terms of creating packs of virtual card slips of shiny, really
Yeah.
cool ones. So it kind of is, hey, this is suspense. There's a surprise element to it. These are usable card slips that look really cool. They're not just the same ones that you could print off at any normal printer. They're more, again, using the P word, professional, really cool looking. And that's where he's just been doing that for so much time that it's obviously very worth recognizing. And yeah, I mean, and that's where like, it's just every time we kind of think like, oh, we got that covered, someone else comes up with a brand new awesome idea, like the collecting encyclopedia. That was something that got a lot of likes on our social media. People love that, and that's exclusively a Decipher thing. But just our proofing team helped a lot with that.
Yeah.
There's
It's
graphics in
really,
it.
I reference it all the time because there's so many. I mean, other games have more, right? But like, there's a lot of weird idiosyncrasies where it's like this was the weird misprint, Hoth Dark Side back on Light Side Rares, or it's like, okay,
Yeah.
pretty. I like
Well,
collecting because I think it's a fun little hunt, but I'm like, even this stuff is too obscure for me. But like, it's nice to have this resource there.
yeah, yeah,
So
it's
it's good to kind of do both. You got the player side and the collecting side. I try to do that as well because I recognize that collecting, there's just a lot of people that like collecting this stuff, that it's iconic and memorable, and that 6-year period they want to have every card, and finding a way to have them be as a part of the Big Ten, I think is key.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm always pleasantly like it's something that I find really, really intriguing. Just like the people in the Star Wars CCG universe, like what is the split between like exclusive collectors versus old school players versus open players? And of course, there's overlap there too. Some people play
Right,
open and
right.
retro. Some people collect and do open. And I do all three of them. But it's just really interesting because I noticed just some of the responses on retro stuff and collecting stuff gets a great response, which is awesome. I think just the open format's a little intimidating just because it's another about 900 cards on top of the 2,500 that Decipher released to kind of know. And then there's lots of players who can. And I was pleasantly surprised that there is a learning curve. The game is complex, but anyone who's like, oh, I want to play open, but everyone else has been playing this for 25 years. I'm never going to be able to catch up. I
Right.
would not take that approach. There's enough randomness in the game. There's enough mentoring and resources and just neat things and different options. And that's going back to what I was talking about before about different events. Some of them are less competitive. Some of them lop off the top, the strongest cards, so to speak, or some formats are, intentionally more casual. Some of them are definitely only retro formats. So they're more comfortable. And there's just ways to kind of do stepping stones and blend. And we're all about, we want people playing, collecting, engaging in any way possible. And we know that people come and go. It's a game that as with all games, I guess sometimes real life gets in the way for a little bit. But
Yeah.
again, that's another huge benefit of Jemp is that people can be passively involved in Star Wars CCG more now than they ever have. Like back in 10 years ago, if you weren't going to events on a regular basis, you were very behind understanding everything. Now, go and Jump, you can watch games, you can play games, you can do different formats, and you can watch streaming coverage, you can watch all the great content that you and other people are producing. And you really just you can listen to podcasts as you're driving.
Yep.
There's just ways to balance it more now that people don't have to be completely in or out of the game, which I think is awesome.
So kind of looking forward to the future here. So 2023 is right around the corner. What do we got in store for 2023? So I think there's just a virtual set 20 that dropped. That was kind of a smaller set that was sort of more so tinkering. But I guess is there sort of like a big plan for 2023 or anything kind of big on the agenda?
Yeah, so 2023, and it's funny because I thought like November, December, January were going to be pretty slow, but there's lots going on. Yet. So the new set came out. It was only 10 new cards, and then it was like 25, 30 like tweaks to older cards. And this is the second time we've had what we call like a tweak set. The design advocate Chris Kelly calls it. And it's basically some cards that have functions that people are just sick of, or they're a little too strong, or they're underlying like decks that are just overbearing or too popular. So a lot of the set 20 was kind of tinkering with stuff, which I think is good. And it's exciting because, sometimes when there's the cream of the crop rises and some of the decks that people really like playing, they just are always going to lose with them in a wide open meta. So now I think that allows to bring some more stuff in. We have our Champions League going on, which, going back to what I was talking about before about the local leagues, this year for the first time we've done all the league winners competed in like a World Cup style competition. We're just about to start the top 8 of that now, and that's really neat because it gives the local leagues a little more purpose. And again, Jump coming in again because it can be a global competition. We're not constrained by, we have people from Europe involved. People from Australia can join leagues. There's some that play in the Retro League even. So we're gonna have the league circuit, Champions League's going on. We did an Outrider Cup, which mimics the Ryder Cup for like golf, where we
Yeah,
have
that's a fun little turn of phrase.
yeah. So basically, people compete, and the better they do over the course of 2 years, the more likely they are to make the team. And then so that'll happen, at the end of the year. But I think last year, with again advancements and improvements in streaming and coverage and awareness, I'm seeing all the time that some people are like, I really want to make the Outrider Cup team, or I want to be the captain of the Outrider Cup team. So there's again kind of adding these different wrinkles and purposes. And then with our Retro League, we're kicking that up. We made some tweaks. We did a player survey, just like we did a broad player survey for the entire community. We did a survey on the Retro League to say, what things did you like, what things did you not like. So working with Steve Sanders and Andy Talaga, that's kicking off in just a couple weeks, and that'll be really cool. I think last year.
Let me just quickly jump in. Is it too late if folks want to get involved in a Retro League? So I think it's like an evolving format. So it's Premier to Hoth, and there's Premier to whatever Endor, and it's an entire league. But is it too late to sign up for it?
No. So we're December 21st now. You can sign up for event 1 as late as January 13th.
Okay, I'm going to include a link for it. I just think you might have people interested. They're going to hear this and say, "I'd love to do something like that."
Encourage everyone to sign up. It's a really neat format, a really neat event. And if you miss the first event, because we do it Swiss style, so we kind of have to know like who's in this event, do all the pairings, and then it kind of locks for a little bit. You can join the second event, the third event, the fourth event. Last year we had that happen a lot, just because we try to get the word out, but inevitably some people are going to be like, "Oh wow, I didn't know about this. Can I join event 3?" And that's totally fine. It's just if you want to maximize your chance to do well in the overall standings, you want to play in all 5 events.
Right.
So that's open to everybody. And we're giving away uncut sheets. Actually, just was at the PC storage unit a couple days ago and pulled out lots of great prizes for that league and for other events as well.
So can I just pause? I feel like the PC storage unit's a source of great mystery. Can you just give us a little glimpse into what the PC store? Are we talking like a 10 by 10, 20 by 20? Like what is this mysterious place?
Yeah, it's like one big garage, and it has lots of items that have been earmarked over time for prizes. They're not things that we're just going to give away. We're not things we're not going to just sell it. That was never the intent for that stuff. It was for continuing our mission of fostering.
This was all from the original seeding. This Decipher loses the license, then they give you the PC. Mm-hmm. I think I read over $1 million worth of prizes, essentially. Of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So Jim Colson, I think, managed it for a little bit, and I think he talked about it maybe on one of your streams last year. But yeah, eventually it moved up here in New Jersey area, and so we go there a couple times a year just to get the some of the stuff that's a little harder to store elsewise. But the uncut sheets, there are a lot, and I think there's we found better ways to utilize them and award them over time. Again, and for people who support the game, for people who play the game, play actively, we want to recognize that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, so the Retro League's gonna be going on. We have a major coming up in Southern California and San Diego in the end of January. World Championships are going to be in August this year. Usually they're October. They're going to be in August in New Jersey, Morristown, New Jersey. And I know, again, our good friend Andy's come a couple times already. He's going to be leading a retro event, in-person retro event, which that'll be fun. And then there's a couple other majors on the calendar. Like there'll be one in Minnesota at the very end of March. There'll be one in Seattle, as it has been for the last 6 years, in October. And there's just the online championship series is going on. Underlying all this, we're going to have a big online retro event in April and May. That's going to be Premier to Special Edition. That'll be a really fun format because, the operatives are going to be eroded.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit like a pseudo, it's an old school format, but it also is a little untapped of a meta because, all the errata that are current are going to be in effect for this.
Interesting. I'm just glad to hear that there's just so much happening and sort of this menu of options as well, where whether you're a collector or sort of a retro player or interested in getting into open, which I kind of put myself in that bucket. I just feel like I've tinkered with open, but it feels like a lot. I almost need, for me, like I need to sit down and read like a 10-page document on like the meta, right? And like, oh, here's the 5 decks here's tier 1, here's tier 2, here's tier 3. To sort of figure out like, okay, what do I want to do? Because it's just so daunting to have 900 new cards. And like, okay, how do they all interplay? And is there some card from special edition that makes this deck work that you would have never thought about because, who's tracking these random cards from special edition or whatever?
Yeah, and on that note, I just encourage anyone kind of in a similar boat. We actually just had an article released today. It's on our webpage. So if you go to starwarsccg.org, it's in the recent article section, I think, or recent post. And it's by one of our individuals. He goes by Idea Track. And he came back to the game. He's kind of like me, where he took a collecting angle, got involved in retro, and he's really been dipping into open as well. So I think he finished second or third in the retro league last year. He got involved in volunteering. He helps on the proofing team. He went to an in-person major in England in Naboo region last year. So he's got a really great story. So I highly recommend anyone checking that article out who's kind of, maybe a little afraid to dip your toe in the open pool, or just really kind of immerse yourself just in general and kind of the broader community. But it's, there's lots and lots of resources. And on that end too, like the best way to learn, honestly, fire up some decks and lose a bunch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, playing with the retro league, I was under 500, but I'm like, oh yeah, I just learned a lot of stuff that I definitely was playing things wrong. Like I did not, understand red cards for like, you went in like order, right? It's like you play one, I play one, you play one, like response. I was like, oh, I was not doing that correctly.
And the cool thing is the newer you are, or the more novice you are, the more you learn with every single game, the more takeaways you have. Because some of these players have had thousands and thousands of games over time. They're not going to learn, maybe they learn one new thing in each game, but that's really, and you could observe on Gem, you could play, and then you can kind of fine tune your decks. It's always good to kind of have like a base deck, and the PC website has lots and lots of deck list options. And now not only for open, but gradually we're gonna have more and more retro format options. So yeah, I mean the resources are out there. And another cool thing to anybody, like feel free, like ask people who are involved in the community, like, hey, I keep losing. Can I send you some of my replays from Gemp, which is really cool? Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I should do here. And that type of thing. Like I've done that with a few returning players. That goes a long way, because like they send me the replay and I'm just like, no, you don't want to do this or don't do this, or, why you felt, it seems like you had kind of an itch to do something. You didn't really have to do something there. You could be a little more patient, like all those types of things. And I think that's the best way to learn playing, and then kind of reviewing and getting some help to review.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you learn more from mistakes than you do from, like victories, right? Like it way more.
Failure's the best teacher, right? Is that what
yeah, absolutely. We got a couple minutes left here, Jared. Any kind of closing thoughts or, things? I guess one of the big things I think we kind of covered this, but just say it very directly. If you're just listening to this right now and you're like, how can I get involved? What's the easiest way to get involved? There's the PC forums, but what do you think the easiest way for somebody who's just a casual listener, loves Decipher products, like how can I get involved? What do you think it is? Yeah,
so I would start, honestly, so play.starwarsccg.org is Gemp. And that's where you can play. And we use that for announcements. Our social media lead, James Martin, is always routinely posting news in there in the lobby. Sometimes the lobby gets covered up by people talking, but we use like the message of the day. Forum.starwarsccg.org. That's our forums. That's where people can interact. A little more of a permanent place where you can do posts, you can review things. That's organized in a way of big and upcoming events. And then more resource stuff like trading, collecting, deck primers, all that type of stuff. And then we have our social media, like at SWCCG on Twitter. That's pretty much anything newsworthy will go through there for sure. Facebook group, just Star Wars CCG. That I think is, as you know, is a lot more collecting, a lot more old school, which is totally fine. But if you want to know about like current events, we put stuff in there, but sometimes it kind of gets lost in the all the activity. But so forum, our Twitter account, Gemp. Our website, we're getting more and more stuff onto there to be more visible. So StarWarsCCG.org. All the news, we got the online championship series is coming up. The Retro League, there's an article posted on there for that. Online Play Week is coming up in February. That's a lot of fun. And the forum is probably the best place to go for like local events, regional tournaments. There's a Slack and a Discord, and there's plenty of stuff going on there as well. So
Yeah, it's truly like any social media, like pick your poison. There's a platform, I mean, Instagram might be the one that's the most sparse, but I feel like there's a couple other, you can find stuff everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's like good and bad in that we have all these different options, but at the same time, when we want to make announcements, you kind of have to hit them all.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes for one reason or another, one of like we have the Instagram
Well,
too.
it's like each of them, like it's like our Instagram needs to be a different length than Twitter, right? And like
Mhm.
they're not the same announcement. It's like,
Yeah,
from a copy standpoint, it's complicated.
yeah. And it's interesting too, like the audience, like the Discord and the Facebook group definitely skew more old school players, old school collectors. Slack is more like open players, people that have been going to 2, 3 major events every year for 10 years, or they're people that do a lot of in-person open events. Twitter, we kind of a little both. The forum, I think some people are kind of, if they're new to the community, they might be like, what is this forum? Or, we get the comments
To be
sometimes.
honest, I've never been able to get into the forum because it just feels like I spent a lot of time on 90s message boards, but I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I've
But I
gone
think some of
past
us are
this
just so
now.
used to it.
Yeah, yeah, but it was a little hard to like break into the
Mm,
forums. So that's probably the one place I'm not really on. I actually
yeah.
really enjoy the Reddit. The Reddit is filled with just like
Mm,
it's a lot of the I just found my shoebox of cards. What is this, right? So
yeah.
I think I have a hypothesis that a lot of the traffic I've gotten is from Reddit stuff, right?
Mhm,
People just because I think
mhm.
Reddit and Facebook are also kind of intertwined as far as
Yeah.
you're on Reddit, you're also the kind of person that looks up stuff on YouTube, right?
Mhm.
Versus like Facebook, that's not always true. Like the Facebook, YouTube overlap. I'm kind of like spitballing here, but that's some of my theories, right? That the type
Yeah,
of
and
person on Reddit.
that I think that probably has some legs to it. But yeah, our YouTube channel is really good. We're getting more and more stuff on there gradually, more and more game streams. Something I've learned just being a market advocate and watching those metrics. Like people really, really, really like to watch actual games. And they learn a lot, and hearing the commentators kind of talk about different things. And we always
Yeah,
try to minimize the acronyms because so if you're a new returning player, a lot of that stuff might be going over your head. But we do try to keep getting better. But yeah, lots of different options, lots of different ways to engage. And a lot of people are very, very friendly and very helpful. So we
yeah,
encourage collectors, old school players, new school players from all over the world to get involved in different ways.
cool. Any so sort of final thoughts here? Anything that we missed?
Um, no, I think we touched on a lot of the big things. The one thing I just want to, and that was very, very complimentary of what you were saying there earlier about how like the organization does have such a professional feel. We're going out of this 20th anniversary celebration, but it really has just been incredible that, like I said this at our at Worlds this year, like we're not all still supposed to be here doing this. It's really a testament to of course the game itself, the IP, but it's also a testament to the volunteers that have just over years and years who have kept the game going, kept the infrastructure going, kept live events and online events, and now more recently, continually reached out and surveyed the community to find ways to improve and get better in terms of graphics. Like we just go on and on and on. So it's really just impressive to take a step back and really take it all in of just where the game, the community is, and yeah, I'm very, very pleased with how everything's going, and I'm very, very optimistic and confident in how it's going to progress over the next several years.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is one of the best things about the end of the year is sort of taking that moment and reflecting back on it. And it's not just in the PC's case, it's not just reflecting on the last year, but you guys have done this for 20 years, which probably is, you're not supposed to be here. I think everyone probably thought that would be like a 5 year, whatever, 10-year thing. And,
Mm.
I sometimes get in arguments that I think the game is at a healthier point now than it, when it was during the Decipher era. Cause I think everyone forgets like what a mess the game was. Like when it's like,
Big
all right,
one.
now we have shields, and then there's maintenance on characters that are overpowered. And like the last couple months, the game were not healthy, right? Like
Yeah,
being
yeah, that
powerful.
was a bad stage just in terms of lots of overpowered stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. Just one more point, like you have new and returning players, they come back, they want to play on Gem. They just want to have a fun, casual game. And then someone
Right.
who's trying to win the game is playing numbers or insert cards like anger, fear, aggression. And there's like this mindset of like, can we just have a gentleman's agreement of like not playing all the stuff that everyone agrees is NPE? But it's like you can't really ban all that, or you're gonna get some of these crazy ban lists. And that's where open is good in that all the stuff that people have been ripping their hair out for 10, 15, 20 years, there are ways to combat that stuff in a balanced manner. And that's I think, very attractive to a lot of people.
So yeah, I'll just say this is why I don't think I've ever played Andy on Jump before, just because I'm like he plays to win, and I'm just playing to kind of have some fun, right? Like yeah, winning's great, but like just he's actually a much better player than I am. I'm okay with that. Like, but
Yeah.
it's just recognizing your own limitations. So
yeah, and
so,
that's where if you're new to it, just put up a table and just say, "Hey, I'm new," or "Hey, I'm looking for a casual, fun game," and people are usually welcoming and understanding that way.
yeah, absolutely. Jared, this has been a lot of fun to catch up, and we'll have to do this sometime next year, maybe when one of the new sets drops. But happy holidays to you, and
You too.
successful year, and really appreciate the all the work you guys have done, and the definitely winning the content creator of the year award. It kind of came out of left field. I was like, it's great. Kendall messaged me. I was like, Kendall, I actually only started doing this because I was listening to your stuff, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
yeah, that's
anyways,
great. Well, and thank you. Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Catch you next time, everybody. All right, and we're